You've probably heard of Abraham Maslow's law of the hammer, which says if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. We can apply this philosophy to the tools we use to manage conflict. Although we have many tools we can choose from, we tend to reach for the same one or perhaps two tools every time. We'd like to expand the number of tools in your conflict styles toolbox, along with the knowledge of when to use them, so you don't automatically reach for the hammer when a screwdriver might be a better option. In the process, we'll contrast the two that tend to be easily confused: compromise and collaboration. In 1974, Kenneth Thomas and Ralph Killman studied conflict styles in the workplace, coming up with 5 core methods. This became the basis of the TKI, or the Thomas-Killman Conflict Model Instrument. This model plots 5 different conflict styles across 2 dimensions: assertiveness and cooperativeness. The TKI defines assertiveness as the degree to which people are willing to take initiative and force their will upon others, and cooperation as the degree to which people are willing to work together to accomplish a goal. You probably know some people who prefer to use the assertiveness style virtually every time. That's their preferred tool. And you probably know others who tend to use the cooperative style to the extreme, giving in to others to make them happy. But there are other styles, or tools, that can be more effective, depending on the situation. Let's think about the 2 dimensions a bit differently, in terms of having someone's needs and goals met. Your level of assertiveness should be based on the importance of your needs and goals being met. Sometimes it's vitally important that you get what you want, your must-have, while other times what you think you want is really a nice-to-have. Your level of cooperation should be based on the importance to you that the other party's needs and goals are met. Let me emphasize that there is no one best way of managing conflict. There may be a preferred way for many situations, but there are times when each conflict management style has its place. Let's start with situations when it's vitally important, from your perspective, that you get what you want, but you really don't care if the other person gets what they want. High concern for your needs and goals being met, and low concern for the other person's needs and goals being met. Your level of assertiveness would be high, but your concerns for the other getting what they want would be low, resulting in a competitive style of managing conflict, considered a win-lose style. You might also hear this style referred to as forcing or hard bargaining. Think of an emergency or crisis situation. If the Titanic is sinking and there aren't enough lifeboats and time is running out, a competitive style would probably be appropriate. Some consider this as not assertive, but highly aggressive communication. Be careful. You might win the battle, but lose the war. This style can definitely poison a relationship. Another time competition might be appropriate is when losing could undermine your integrity or your self-respect. If there are scarce resources, there's not enough of something to go around. Again, think of the Titanic with an insufficient number of lifeboats. Competition might be the correct tool. Sometimes you may have to retreat to this competitive style if you tried other styles and they haven't worked. Let's move to the bottom right corner, where it's really important, again from your perspective, that the other party gets what they want, and that you feel your needs or goals are not as important. Accommodation. This is a lose-win style. The other party wins, and you lose. For years, the norm was for women to be accommodating, that their needs were not as important to others. Also called yielding, smoothing, or soft bargaining, this style is non-assertive of individual needs, because you put away your own concerns, oftentimes making one-sided concessions in favor of pleasing the other party. It's appropriate when the issue or consequence isn't really significant to you, as well as when maintaining harmony in the situation or your relationship is important. If the other person has legitimate authority, say your boss, you probably want to accommodate. And while I know it happens very rarely, if you find out you are wrong, you should probably try accommodation. Moving to the bottom left corner, where your concerns for your needs and goals being met is not really important, and you also don't care about the other party's needs and goals. Avoidance, sometimes called withdrawal. It's a lose-lose style. You withdraw, either physically or psychologically, avoiding getting drawn into a conflict. You might avoid a discussion, change topics, deny the conflict even exists, or even making sure you aren't in the same room with the other party. This style can be good in the short term. Say you schedule another time to discuss the issue using a different style. When is avoidance appropriate? When the issue or the relationship is not important to you, or there are more important issues demanding your attention at the moment. If there is a possibility of physical or emotional harm, you probably want to avoid the situation. Sometimes it's just not the right time to address a conflict, and other times, if you and the other party is overly emotional or unwilling to problem solve, using avoidance at the moment could provide some cool down time, allowing you to think through an appropriate response. The next two strategies are often confused: compromise and collaboration. They may seem similar, but there are clear differences between the two. Let's focus on compromise first, sometimes called distributive or negotiation. You'll see two different classifications of this style: lose-lose, as in true compromise, both parties give up something important. No one truly wins. And win-lose, lose-win, because compromise often manifests as I get what I want this time and you can get what you want next time, or vice versa. Compromise is good as a temporary solution, something you can use as a stopgap while you work on something more permanent. It's also appropriate if you find out both parties' goals are truly incompatible. Sometimes negotiation is not only expected, but necessary to communicate goodwill. A slight detour. Culture plays a large role in the appropriateness of conflict management styles. If you go to the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, you are expected to haggle, and in many collectivist cultures, the preferred style is avoidance. Back to when compromise is appropriate. When the goals are only moderately important to all involved, and if attempts at collaboration have been unsuccessful, compromise can be your backup plan. Let's move to the last of the core styles, in the upper right corner, which is collaboration, win-win, sometimes called integrative or cooperative. This style focuses on the goals of each party, then works to find a solution that satisfies everyone, based on the outcome meeting their important goals. This is different from compromise, where you settle for a solution that partially satisfies each party. Not surprisingly, this style is often more difficult and more time-consuming than the others. Collaboration is often considered to be the most constructive style of handling conflicts, when both the issue and the relationship are important to all parties. Some go as far as to say that this style should be used in most conflicts, except when other styles are more appropriate. And remember the caveat we started with: there is no one best way of managing conflict. Every conflict style has its place. But before you choose which method you want to use to manage a particular situation, it's important to check the validity of your assumptions. For example, is there really the possibility of undermining your integrity and self-respect if you use another method than competition? Are the goals or needs truly incompatible, requiring compromise? You may have noticed that the more concern you have for the relationship, the more likely you are to move up to compromise and collaboration. So if you really care about the relationship, you may want to start with a collaborative approach rather than starting with competition. You are also probably questioning that if collaboration is so good, why don't people use this approach more often? First, there's a lack of awareness. Many of us aren't even taught how to compromise, much less how to collaborate. Another reason is our emotions. It's difficult to manage conflict if all of our emotions are interfering. And third is that it requires the other person's cooperation, especially difficult if their go-to style is competition. Let's go back to the first reason, the lack of awareness. They may not even know how. People often think they are collaborating when they are actually compromising. There are four main differences between the two styles. In compromise, there's a focus on positions or solutions. This is what I want to have happen. In comparison, collaboration focuses on the interests, the values, or what's really important to each party, and then figures out a way to meet those interests. Rather than coming into a discussion with a specific solution in mind, collaborators create a mutual solution together. In compromise, each side gives up something important, and it's not always a 50-50 split. If both parties give up something that is really important to them, they are compromising. Both are losing. In collaboration, both parties work together to ensure that important interests are met. Any interests that are not met are usually nice-to-haves versus must-haves. Remember that compromise is sometimes referred to as win-lose, lose-win? That reflects the turn-taking behavior of compromise. You get what you want one time, you win, and the next time the other party gets what they want. Now it's your turn to lose. In collaboration, the solution tends to address everyone's interests simultaneously. You don't have to wait to get your important interests met. With a better understanding of which situations call for each of the 5 core concept styles, as well as the difference between compromise and collaboration, you should be able to consider each of your conflict situations and reach for the right tool for the right job.